Hello and welcome back to Warming the Bench. It's Bev and Daniela here. Bev, how are you today? Are you staying cool or trying to?
Well, I'm cool anyway. I mean, I don't need to stay cool.
I love it. I had a feeling that there was going to be a little joke in there somewhere.
Well, there you go. You asked for it, you've got it. I'm absolutely fine, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. It's Monday. Can't complain too much. We have a countrywide holiday on Wednesday, and then I have the rest of the week off, so I'm actually doing pretty well.
Oh, have you got any plans?
I haven't actually. I'm going to really formally relax because I need to do that. So I'm going to just take my time. I'm going to enjoy the outdoors, enjoy some of the World Cup going on, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, that sounds like my favorite kind of break. Perfect.
You
Pottering.
know what? It's the best. Yeah, it's the best. Maybe read a book or two, have a little
Oh,
cocktail outside, that sort of thing.
sounds absolutely
Oh my
perfect, Dan.
goodness.
Enjoy.
It does. We wanted to thank everyone for listening in to our episode with Shadow Football last week. I hope you really enjoyed it. I know Bev and I really enjoyed it. And
Did.
as we mentioned, we will definitely have him back towards the end of the year. I think he'll have some brilliant insight, but it was a lot of fun. And I know he enjoyed himself too, which was good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was really, really interesting. It was good to get a different perspective as well, Dan, I thought.
Indeed, it really was. And we really did appreciate his insight. We cannot wait for more. But Bev, before we get stuck into our episode today, I mentioned the World Cup, and I'm going to segue into this because over on your part of the globe, ITV is doing the coverage over in England or the UK. And some of the punditry has been provided by Emma Hayes, our friend. I'm going to call her friend of the pod, even though she doesn't really know who we are. And she's a friend. She's a friend of the pod, guys. Emma, if you're listening, and we hope one day maybe you will listen, that would be pretty cool. You're a friend of the pod, honorary friend. And Emma's brilliant, but that has not landed so well with some viewers. And ITV decided to really set her up in an odd way. Bev, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, what I see here, there's a central tension. So we got a
Hmm.
world-class football mind placed in a setting that was considered visually and symbolically to look like a kitchen.
Hmm.
Now,
Mm.
so there's that tension there. I'm going to be honest with you, Dan. When I first
Hmm.
watched it, that did not come into my mind. So I did not see
Hmm.
her standing in what some people describe it as a kitchen area. I did not see that at
Yeah.
all. I saw Emma Hayes with her
Hmm.
brilliant football brain getting stuck into the
Hmm.
tactics. I think it was during, wasn't it not a hydration break?
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, and I do have, I'd like you to kind of start diving into this one, and because I do have an alternative perspective. So off you go, Dan.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm actually gonna. I agree with you. I didn't see the actual what it looked like or what it appears to look like until I saw someone comment on it because I was more um, paying attention to what Emma was saying, and I was just so stuck into her mind. I was like, oh, that makes sense with her chalkboard and the very basics. She speaks really well, but in a way that anybody can understand it. So I was really fascinated by that, and I loved just off the side that ITV decided not to hit to actual commercials because the hydration break has annoyed everybody with the marketing and everything that goes behind that. So I really enjoyed that. And then it was when it was brought up on social media, that's when I really started to see I'm like, oh, yeah, that kind of does. I can understand why people see what they see, and it looks like a somewhat of a kitchen background. And then I just wondered whether it was intentional, and my brain just went into all these different arenas because of the backlash that she's gotten and all the misogyny that's kind of been levied at her being on ITV and providing this insight.
Mm, that's
Hmm.
interesting, Dan, that we both felt the same.
Hmm.
My feeling is, I was funny enough, I was watching a documentary with Emma, talking to somebody about
Mhm.
her career. And Emma
Yes.
was talking about the sexism that she's been on the receiving end of her entire career. And she must have been on
Mhm.
some stuff, I can tell you. She's a tough lady. I've
Mhm.
also watched
Yeah.
various documentaries, and I know that
Mhm.
she is not or has not been afraid to tell team members to pull their socks up and higher their standards.
Yes.
And she's also not been afraid to say it's time for us to move on. Now, with that kind
Yes.
of background and pedigree, I find it very difficult to believe that she didn't have some kind of say in how the set was organized, Dan. I find it difficult. And then,
Yeah.
her being placed amongst this, I'm surely knowing also that women are on the receiving end of, an awful lot of misogyny and bullying and online bullying. And Ian Wright is a big figurehead in terms of
Mhm.
supporting the women's game. He is always
Mhm.
on about the misogyny and the sexism and the racism that he has clearly suffered
Yeah.
during his career. And he said, go and do what you want to do anyway, because it won't stop the haters hating. More or less, that's been his
Yeah.
message. And I just cannot
Mhm.
believe that Emma wouldn't have been involved in all of this, in the production of it, the setting up. I wouldn't believe it that she would go into this and kind of be set up to be in the firing line. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I hadn't actually considered that, but now that you're saying it, it does kind of make sense. And Emma is someone who is, as we know, very, very bright.
Mm,
And it actually would not surprise me if she was kind of involved in the entirety of it and really did not see any issue with
mm,
it, or maybe purposely asked for something in a similar setup and design for that exact reason.
mm,
Because this is kind of what Emma does. She's very good at the mind, and I don't want to say it in a negative way, but the mind games of a lot of things as well.
mm,
If you reference back to her last season, those last couple of games when she said, "Oh no, like the title's out of our hands," all this kind of stuff, and that
mm.
was really playing mind games with their opposition, and she knew exactly what she was saying. Granted, she was protecting her players at the same time, but she definitely is one for the greater picture. So yeah, I hadn't really thought of that, but I would not be surprised at all.
But it wasn't just that, Dan. The fact is, you can also look at it this way as well. Because, I mean, it's all about critical thinking, that, that's what we're all about. She was in
Mhm.
there. She was over there in the corner and she had her blackboard. Now, that's not unusual to have a blackboard. That's quite a traditional,
No,
classic way of managers communicating with their team members, especially on the pitch. I've very often seen some chalkboards, and the all tactics are up and the team are huddled around, and also within the dressing room and things like this. It's not unusual. It's quite a classic thing to do. But you
yes.
see, the attention is completely focused on Emma. She has the stage. I
Mhm.
know there's a backlash, but she had the stage. She was in
Right.
control. The focus was on
Mhm.
her, not the lad sat in the seating area. The focus was on her.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And it was completely right, whether it was good or unfortunately some negative focus, but the focus was still completely on her. So
Mm,
whether it was positive feedback or people being a-holes about it, it still meant that she was everywhere because that algorithm would latch on to everything, no matter what it is, good, bad, ugly, all the
mm,
above. And then she became more of a central focus of that, which, yeah, that makes complete sense. I think you have a very good point there, Bev.
mm. Yeah, I mean,
Very
and
good.
and and like
Yeah.
you said, you've just, to link up what with what you've just said, Dan. You know, she has a great mind, and maybe she was already 5 steps ahead. You don't think that she didn't
Yeah,
anticipate that if something was going to come up? Of course, she anticipated that she was going to get some kind of
of
backlash.
course.
Of course, she did. I
Yeah.
mean, what I've loved, you know, besides the football, when I've been able to watch it, because it's very odd times over here, it's 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, um,
Hmm.
is that she, oh God, I forgot my, I forgot my, then. Yeah, I have
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, no, you're all good. You were just saying what she
Oh,
loved,
sorry.
what she's
Oh,
always
what I,
5 steps
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
yeah. And what I've really enjoyed about the football is that the women have been
Mm.
everywhere. They've been like my anchors. They've been like my
Yes.
safety blankets almost, you know, in amongst all
Mhm.
this testosterone. You know, we've had
Yeah.
women presenters, women pundits, including Emma. Then they go out onto the
Hmm.
pitch, and there are some presenters there. And I've really felt great about that. But, you know, a lot of,
Hmm.
you know, the misogynists, it's
Yeah.
perforating something that is
Hmm.
very traditionally male, and it doesn't take a lot to start them off, does it?
No, it really doesn't. Just stick a woman in front of a TV and somehow everyone gets angry. I don't get it. Well and truly, it's very, very bizarre to me. Yeah, I kind of ranted as you know, I ranted on our Instagram page about this. I was quite fired up when I saw a lot of it, and now I'm laughing at it. I'm still seeing comments, and I'm just taking it laughing because they're so bothered, and these women who are participating in whatever circumstance they are in this World Cup are just having the time of their lives despite it all. So good for them. And well, sorry, fellas, you can just turn off the TV if you don't want to watch it, I guess.
Well, I say at the end of the day, Emma and Co
Yeah.
are laughing all the way to the
Hmm.
bank, aren't they?
You know what? They absolutely are. And speaking of the bank, that kind of rolls really nicely into our some of our conversation today because we're going to be speaking about historic contracts and transfers and some signings, legacy making ones or legacy contracts and transfers and signings, however you want to describe it, because we're in the transfer window right now. So for those who might not be aware, we're in a summer transfer window and there's a lot of moves going on. And Bev and I decided we wanted to kind of take us a little bit of a look back on some pretty prominent ones, I would say. Would you not?
Oh, definitely, definitely. If I can give a little bit of an overview and then pass on to you to deep dive in into the each of
Sure.
the four that we've chosen. So what we're going to
Yeah,
do
go for
is
it.
a little project. So this week is part one. So we're looking at, as Dan already said, it's contracts, transfers, and signings. And next week, because it just links in perfectly, is commodities, people, or both. And then
Mm,
FIFPro. FIFPro, for those of you who don't know, is the union, the international union that looks after footballers' welfare and well-being, etc., etc. Because that's
hmm.
the moderator in
Yeah.
all of this when we look at footballers because commodities as they often are. So that will form part two of
Mhm.
this little project that we're doing. And the four that we're looking at this week is Keira Walsh, Sam Kerr, Trinity Rodman, and Bunny Shaw. And what I've done already in advance is pulled out the common denominators in terms of all four, Dan, because
Mm.
I think
Oh.
it's very important because I think it's
Mhm.
giving an indication of where women's football is going, its trajectory. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree completely, and I'm really excited to hear those common denominators because I know this is something you're exceptionally good at, and I'm really excited to hear them because I think I have a few in mind, but
Yeah.
I might be a little bit off with mine. But yes, thank you for the overview. It's an exciting couple of episodes coming up. There's a lot to go over, and with our FIF Pro episode, the last one, we will touch a little bit on the NWSL, how they're not. Um, covered in the FIFPro, but they have their own union and what that kind of looks like and how that was brought upon them as well. So it's pretty interesting how those two kind of relate to each other as well. But you know what, let's start with transfers actually, because we are in the transfer window. So you mentioned Keira Walsh. Now, Keira Walsh is currently back in the WSL, but in 2022, she had just transferred to Barcelona. So it was a pretty late transfer actually. I think it was August or into September 2022. She was prior to that with Manchester City. She was part of the Man City Academy, Blackburn Rovers before that, but she was a kind of a large deal at City and had been there for a number of years. And it kind of, I don't know if you have a memory of this, Bev, but I remember the Walsh transfer, it kind of came out of nowhere, even though Barcelona had tried to sign her previously and Man City had kind of shot that deal down. But I definitely did not expect it. And it was just off the back of the Euros. So England had just won the Euros, right, in 2022. So it was kind of a big deal that she was going. And the reason we wanted to speak about Keira Walsh was because this was the time that a large transfer fee had been tacked on to a player. So just for reference, Walsh signed I believe it was a 4-year deal, or sorry, 3.5-year deal with Barcelona, and they paid 400,000 pounds or 470,000 euro, because obviously it's different currency for her at the time. Now, this was 4 years ago. Okay, so I'm just going to keep putting that out there. 4 years. And this was a massive fee because at that time, a lot of players were signing on freeze with a lot of clubs. And if there were transfer fees, they were very, very minimal. This was a quite a large deal. I think the only one previously to this was maybe Pernilla Harder when she came over from Wolfsburg to Chelsea. And that was she had a yeah, she had probably about a year and a half still on her contract. So it was it wasn't as substantial because given how much of the contract they had to pay out, right? Or they had to pay for. But Walsh was a big one. And what I think was really fascinating was that it went to a club and a league that was still very much in more development mode outside of Barcelona because Barcelona is the biggest club in Liga F. We're seeing a lot of these transfer fees now into the WSL, into the NWSL, but for Liga F to have paid this massive amount of a transfer, it really cemented not only where leagues were going to go and where women's football was going, but I think it also spoke a little bit to what kind of a player Walsh was and what she really offered. And I think that Euros run in definitely did wonders for this transfer fee. And Barcelona, for them to have gone so far outside of their typical style of player, they're very used to developing their own players inside their academy. It's a very specific style of football. To acknowledge that Walsh, someone who was not developed in Barcelona, not developed in the Spanish system, would fit so seamlessly into this that they were willing to pay this fee for her, it really said something. And I think it really set up what we now see as in terms of transfers and how we're seeing the transfer market go. What do you think?
Well, I think that's very, very interesting because we've already done a podcast on structures, haven't we? So
Hmm.
that's quite a shift in mindset and cultural shift overall, I would have said. Would you not? Because my
Hmm.
understanding in terms of
Yeah.
research is that she covered for Alexia, funny enough, for Alexia Putellas
Hmm.
when she was out with her ACL. So she slotted in her position,
Yeah.
is my understanding. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, she slotted, I would say, more into the her more traditional, but because Barcelona's midfielders are so versatile in themselves, I think
Okay.
it forced Kira to be a lot more versatile as well. Because yeah, sometimes you would see, even when Alexia came back, you would see her subbing in for Walsh when she was coming back from that injury, or vice versa. Maybe Walsh was going off and Alex, you know what I mean? Like kind of subbing in
Mm,
for each other, which was interesting because most of us would consider Alexia to be a very forward attacking player, right? And Walsh is more of that holding midfield, defensive midfield. But I
mm,
think what it did, again, as I just said, for Kira, was that it definitely elevated her game in a lot of ways because she was kind of forced to look at
mm,
that midfield as something completely different to maybe what she was used to playing in Man Man City because if you recall at the time, Man City under Gareth Taylor were very structured. Everyone had their roles. There was a lot less versatility. It was very like, you do this, your role is this, your role is this. In Barcelona,
Mm.
it's a kind of a very open and fluid midfield that any of those players can pick up those roles and perform them. And I think that did wonders for Walsh personally.
So what you've just said there, really, the cultural shift for the individual
Hmm.
player here is that they're
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about their agency, their own
Hmm.
empowerment, their own
Yes.
where they want to be in the future in terms of their career. So that shift
Hmm.
for her, on the back of that 2022 Euros win, that's given her
Yes.
the bounce, and for all the other players,
Hmm.
within the England team as well, and across the world, because it really did put
Hmm.
women's football under the spotlight. I think it did, and I think it did across the world in several other countries too, in terms of their
Yes.
international teams. Is that
Hmm.
she could take hold of the reins, because it certainly wasn't happening at Man City, especially given what you've said
Hmm.
in terms of how Taylor was managing City, very structured, very
Hmm.
rigid. So here she
Hmm.
could be stepping out of that comfort zone, testing herself,
Yeah.
being creative. I mean, a holding midfielder
Hmm.
is really quite a role. It's quite, you need to be using your head.
Hmm.
You are literally
Yeah.
holding field, aren't you? You are literally
Hmm.
controlling the tempo, the flow, all of it, really. So you
Hmm.
can
Yep.
pass the ball slowly, quickly. You are protecting the back line, and then you
Hmm.
are, so it's that link, isn't it, between back line and then for attack. So I always remember
Correct.
that very much underestimated in terms of the public view, because as Shadow said last
Hmm.
week, you can clearly see what the goalie is doing or not doing. You
Hmm.
can clearly see the
Yep.
wingers if they're passing over the ball to create a goal. That's clear to see. You can see the back line. Um, you can see what they're
Hmm.
doing, but it's very invisible, because
Hmm.
that holding midfielder, is using their head to create the tempo.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what Walsh does so well. And again, the fact that she was able to go into a Barcelona team. And I've listened to interviews with her, and she said it was a little bit daunting at first because she thought she was really technically gifted until she started training with some of the Barca players and realized, oh, I'm going to have to up my game a little bit here
Yeah.
and learn different skills here. But the fact that she was able to go into and, rather quickly did become a regular starter for Barcelona, that speaks to the value that they saw in her. And I think to kind of tie it back to just the transfer in and of itself, it really set up a precedent for, okay, this type of player commanded this type of fee. So, of a similar nature in other leagues and other clubs that might be looking for a similar profile or might need a holding midfielder, maybe it's set a little bit of a benchmark, right? This is what the fee is kind of going to be like now for this type of player. And then, again, that was 4 years ago, and now we're seeing, the transfer fee has hit 1.5 million now for Felicia Schroeder to Real Madrid, right? In 4 years, that it's a what $900,000 shift in transfer fees. So it really just speaks to the growth of the market in and of itself as well, which is fascinating.
You've said 4 years, very quick, very, very quick
Four
indeed.
years,
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, just 4 years.
It is very quick.
Can you remember when
Hmm.
I said to you about Trevor Francis on the men's side, which was 1979? Can you remember that? So that was almost 50 years ago. Because I think,
Yeah.
because we're able to look back at the history of the men's, I think it will happen quicker for the
Hmm.
women's. And that's just a thought. I don't know
Yes.
what if you agree or not.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. Everything is more accelerated, so we're seeing that growth in a almost like a pressure cooker of a growth period, right? So we're seeing it kind of combust almost because the men's happened over a longer period of time, but because women's football has rapidly grown, you're seeing, okay, yeah, you're seeing a $900,000 shift essentially in transfer fees over 4 years, which is very large for the women's game where it's at right now.
Mm,
And I'm just wondering, in a couple of years' time, I don't think I don't think we're much far off from a $2 million transfer, to be quite honest. We might be maybe a year and a half away from that, which
yeah,
is quite interesting in consideration to what Walsh went for in 2022. So
I agree.
definitely a defining moment for the transfer market. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yep, I think that
Mhm.
rounds that one up. Which one do you want to look at
That def
next?
You know what? Let's look at contracts because I was not able to go too much into what Walsh's contract was with La Liga, or sorry, with Barcelona specifically, just because a lot of the Spanish stuff is kept a little bit behind closed doors. But I really want to speak to the more recent contracts that's in this year, 2026, of Trinity Rodman and Bunny Shaw. So I'm going to
Okay.
talk about Rodman for a minute because this one is quite fascinating. So Trinity Rodman, for those who don't know, is a forward with the Washington Spirit that's in the NWSL. Okay, she also plays for the U.S. Women's National Team from a country perspective. And Rodman was one of their big signings, the Washington Spirit signing out of university a few years back. So she's only 24 years old. People need to remember it. She seems a little bit older because she's been around for quite some time. She's only 24, so a couple of years ago she signed out of university, and this was a big deal for anyone who's a basketball fan. Yes, she's related to Dennis Rodman, but she prefers not to be associated with him, so we're going to keep her as her own entity. Okay. And Rodman's contract with the Washington Spirit was set to expire in December 2025. And there was a lot of chatter around, okay, they need to retain her. Is she going to move to another league? Is she going to move abroad? All of these things. And at the time, she was what she had contributed to the Washington Spirit, her profile of the player, her marketability, which we will speak a little bit about next week, of course, was always going to be known that she was going to command quite a large fee. Now, the way the NWSL operates is they have a salary cap. So currently, with revenue sharing and all the above, their salary cap for every club is 3.7 million US dollars. Now, what that means is you cannot go, and it's a hard cap, by the way. So it's not a soft one. It's not like you can. There's wiggle room. It's a very hard cap. So what Rodman was wanting, and what her club, by the way, were willing to pay her. So I just want to make that very clear, was a lot more than they could have used for their cap. Okay. And this became a little bit of a conundrum for them. What do we do? Do we let her walk? All of these things. What ended up happening was the NWSL amended some of their rules, and what's called the high impact player rule, also kind of dubbed the Rodman rule, means that clubs are now allowed to spend $1 million beyond their cap without it affecting that salary cap. And here's where Rodman's contract came in. So she's going to earn, or she is currently now going to be earning about $2 million USD per year. And that's with her salary, bonuses, any sort of add-ons, whatever else is included in that contract. It's a large sum of money. It's over, I think, 3 or 4 years, so it's about $6 million in total package. But the reason that this contract is so significant is because it quite literally forced a league to say, "Ooh, we need to change our rules because we're going to lose players." And this is the type of player that of her profile, only someone like her essentially could have done this because I don't think that they would have amended the rules in general. But because they risked losing this massive figure for the women's soccer in the United States, this is why it was so significant. And now because of this amendment, they are able to attract other world-class talents. Earlier today, Gotham FC announced that they have signed Sam Kerr through 2030, excuse me. No doubt she's on the high impact player salary because that's probably the only way they could afford her with all the other players they have to pay as well. So really massive. And Bev, I know we've spoken so much about legacy and things that players are doing. This is something that Trinity Rodman in 20 years from now will probably look back on her career and say, wow, I kind of helped to do this and to make
Mm.
things better for everybody, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. Can I just clarify something with you, Dan? When you said
Yeah.
3.7 plus the 1 million on top,
Mhm.
is that 3.7?
Yes.
Is that to spread across all team members?
Yes. So that's for the
That's
whole
what I
squad.
thought. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
the
quite a,
whole squad.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, that's what I
correct. Yeah.
thought it
And
was.
the And the Rodman rule allows them to spend 4.7 million without them breaking any rules essentially in that 3.7 million. So it's another pool of money to be able to pay so that it doesn't take away from the initial pool of money that they have to spend.
Ah, I get you. Yeah. And an important thing that you mentioned there, it's to keep high impact, good
Hmm.
quality footballers in an
Hmm.
NWSL,
Yeah,
because it's almost like a
correct.
science break drain, isn't it? It's the football drain. They don't want that to happen, because if that
Hmm.
happens, then the NWSL is not going to be so attractive to other footballers,
Correct.
high level footballers, high impact footballers throughout the
Hmm.
rest of the world. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And it allows them, like I said, allows them to attract international talent as well. Because
Yeah.
one of the biggest criticisms previously of the NWSL was their salaries, and their ability to attract those higher paying players because they would have to go into their cap, right? And then that limits what they can spend on other people. They're more squad players, or I struggle to say non-impact players because I think everyone's impactful in a squad, but you know what I mean, right? Like the different levels. We all know
Mm,
that in squads there will be people who earn more than others. That's not uncommon anywhere, but when they have to dive into that salary cap, that limits what you're going to be able to pay other players too, right? So this rule allows them to do that. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat with this, is that a lot of people, the criticism of this is that the salary cap should have just been raised in general so that it
mm,
allows everyone to make more money. So that is a criticism of it. But as it stands
mm,
right now, the Rodman contract was really historical for the NWSL because it forced the league to look inward and say, okay, what are we going to do to ensure that we can kind of maintain this level of talent and attract other talents? And this is kind of a little bit of a feather in her cap. Regardless of what her career looks like, she's going to be known as the quote unquote Rodman rule, the one who helped move a little bit of the needle in how the NWSL starts to play top level talent.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it reminds me a little bit of
Mhm.
Keira Walsh, isn't it? They're exercising their
Yep,
agency. Yeah, fantastic. I
correct.
mean, I have got,
Absolutely.
because there's a very narrow criteria that's been set
Hmm.
in order for not
Yes.
this to go out of hand, isn't it? And to be fair and equal
Hmm.
to the other players. Now, shall I leave that
Hmm.
for next week? Because it'll be under FIFPro, won't it? Because this was the collective agreements that were made, if I remember rightly, for this criteria.
Yes. So FIFPro doesn't cover the NWSL. They have um, their own union.
Okay.
FIFPro is more for European players, but there is specific criteria for this high impact player rule. Again, it's a little controversial because of what was kind of included. Now, there's been chatter that is going to be amended
Mm.
so that it's a little bit more fair across the board. But we can look at that next week when we do speak about, or sorry, the third episode when we speak about the unions, because the NWSL union did have a lot to say about this criteria. They
Yeah,
were not
yeah,
happy with it. I'll just kind of put
yeah.
it that way. They were
Yeah,
definitely not loving
I've
it.
seen, I've
Um,
watched the
yeah,
athletic. Yeah. I've watched
yeah,
the
yeah.
athletic.
It was quite
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah, they did have a lot to say
for
about
sure.
that. So, but I do think that criteria is best left until next week. Yeah. Okay, that's
Yes,
fantastic. Which
certainly.
one do you want to go for next?
Yeah. You know what? Let's stay on the contracts. Let's chat about your bestie, Bunny Shaw,
Oh, my bestie.
because your bestie, because Bunny Shaw's contract was signed what in the last month and a bit, 5 weeks ago maybe,
Hmm.
um, and another historic contract for the WSL because she's
Hmm.
the highest paid player in the WSL right now, as it stands, and I we've spoken about this a little bit. There was a lot of kind of conversation about will she, won't she. We've kind of come to the conclusion that she probably never had any intention of leaving. It was just a matter of getting things straightened on her end, and what was best for her. But Bunny's contract is so fascinating because, again, it kind of forced a club to move the needle on how they pay players too. Because leading into this contract being signed, it was Man City have a very specific structure, a wage structure, and they're not really willing to deviate from that wage structure. But it really just shows the power that and the agency that we keep talking about that players now have, and especially a player of Bunny's caliber, to be able to look at a club and say, "This is what I'm worth. This is what I believe I'm worth," and it's going to be up to you now up to you being the club, whether you agree that I'm worth this and whether we're going to work together on it. And it maybe took a little bit of time, but Man City eventually looked at it and said, "Yeah, you know what? Fair play. Let's go. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to break our wage structure because this is something that is important for our club and the success of our club." So a little bit of breakdown of Bunny's contract. It's going to be about 1.6 to 1.8 million pounds per year with everything included. So salary, bonus, any add-ons. Again, there's performance bonuses, all this kind of stuff in the package. It's a 4-year deal, so it's quite a significant amount of money. Um, and honestly, I think the WSL kind of needed this, and I think Manchester City kind of needed this because they there's no way they could have let a player like that leave, and the league needed to retain a player like this for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But it's very obvious that Man City has built the team around Bunny Shaw.
Hmm.
She's for the third year in the row, she's the Golden Boot
Yeah.
winner, isn't she? So I mean, that in it of
Yes.
itself speaks volumes, doesn't it? But it wasn't
Hmm.
just that, it was the pushback from the fans as well. They wanted
Yes.
Bunny to stay, and they made that very clear. So that almost like doubled the power that she already had in her
Hmm.
hands. And what I loved about
Yeah.
this is that Bunny, she did study for a degree in communications, and according to
Hmm.
my research, it wasn't that the talks broke down with her agent, but she personalised it because obviously she loves Manchester and she loves Man City.
Hmm.
So she personalised it and she approached Man City and the powers that be directly. And she used her
Yes.
communication skills, which were very evident. I felt it was evident when I look back, it was evident throughout the whole process. She was not cagey exactly, but you know where I'm going with this. She was very, very professional. She had a little bit of a wry
Yes.
smile on her face, and she wasn't letting too much away.
Hmm.
But she was also kind of thinking, well, I'm leaking a little bit. I'll leave it to you to make up your own mind. But she was absolutely instrumental in, forging her own contract there. Fair play to her.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, again, it speaks to that agency. And Bev, I was speaking with a friend of mine, and I wanted to really emphasize this is a massive for like women's football in general, but especially Bunny being a black player, player of color, absolutely huge because we know that just in overall society, there's obviously marginalization of certain groups, and sometimes women of color are just in everyday kind of arenas of jobs will be paid a little bit less. Also, women are paid less in general, but they could be paid less themselves because of their race or kind of just what they fall into. So this is kind of a huge moment because it really allows the kind of Eurocentric um,
Mm.
mindset onto football to be looked at differently. Bunny's not a player who represents any European team. She's from Jamaica. She represents a CONCACAF team, which is not very well represented on the international stage. The competition is still a little less than it is in Europe, a lot less, I should say. So there's multiple factors here. Because when we usually speak of these incredible players, like the vast majority of them will probably come from either the US or European teams. So again, there's so many factors that go into this and what she's representing now for young girls in Jamaica or young girls just anywhere that look like her. They can look at Bunny Shaw and say, wow, that girl looks like me. And she is the highest paid player in the world right now, not even the WSL, in the world. There's so many things that are incredible about this contract, both from a financial perspective, what it did for the club, what it did for the league, and just what it does for the person and people alike.
Oh, absolutely. When I was watching the FA Cup, when Bunny came off because she was substituted, just to the side of
Hmm.
her, there was a little cohort of obviously Jamaican supporters and fans because they were waving the flags like
Hmm.
mad and they were trying to get
Yes.
her attention. And they almost fell over themselves to try and get her attention. And I thought
Oh,
that
yeah.
is it. that is it. It
Yeah.
means so much to the country of Jamaica.
Hmm.
But, Jamaica's a diaspora. Jamaican people of origin have dispersed
Hmm.
to Canada, to
Yes.
the USA,
Hmm.
to the United Kingdom. And when you've got that
Yes.
happening, you know, people of the country of origin carry weight, and they can say,
Hmm.
we're Yankee, about sponsorship. And in these countries of diaspora or representing diaspora, like Canada, you like USA and UK, they can push a bit and say,
Hmm.
well, give Bunny a bit of a contract on this, a sponsorship on that, because we're behind her. We'll make our voices heard. Yeah,
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, 100%. It represents so much more. And like I said, there's obviously the financial side of it and all that's fantastic. But when you put it in the context of the greater like sociological context and all of these other things, it really is so beneficial for so many people that it might not even seem that way on the front of it, but it really is impactful in a lot of ways. And, as I mentioned kind of with Rodman, Bunny can put this as a feather in her cap. This is part of her legacy, right? What she's done for Jamaica, what she's done for the diaspora, what she's done for women of color. And you're going to always look back and say, wow, who was the highest paid player? Like, how did that benchmark start? And that kind of starts from Bunny Shot, really.
absolutely. And like you said, Dan, it's going beyond the USA. It's going beyond Europe,
Hmm.
because for so long, in before we got into the 20s, before
Hmm.
that, there was quite a power play in America, and then after that, it's become England. Subsequent to the 2022 Euros win, and
Yes.
Barcelona has always been excellent and at the top of their game. So it is breaking that
Hmm.
down and dispersing across the world. I talk about these nodes, and these
Hmm.
nodes that I refer to are hives of activity
Yes.
centered around something in particular. For instance, this on this level, it's football. So these little nodes, these little
Yeah.
hivers act all linked to football, and they're dispersing
Hmm.
across the world. And as they disperse
Hmm.
further and further afield, the more powerful women's football becomes, because it hooks in more and more people. It
Hmm.
casts the net further
It's true.
afield. Yeah, it casts the net
Yeah.
further
It,
afield.
it,
Yeah,
yeah, you're completely right. And I think honestly, it kind of goes back to what we said with shadow football last week and just in general. The women's game, the players are playing and they're having fun and they're doing all the things, they're being successful, but there's so much more that goes on in the background when you have moves like this, when you have situations like this. It just helps move that needle consistently, like you
yes,
said, everywhere. But it also is just goes to show that players are still playing for so much of a greater purpose now, and that greater purpose can be felt outside of football, as you just kind of touched on, right?
absolutely. And obviously, Jamaica are going to have to get their act
Hmm.
together, because
Yeah.
Winnie's this great player. She's in the spotlight. Sort out um, all their
Hmm.
structures, sort out their academies so that they have a feed through to the main
Exactly.
national team. They're going to have to really put
Yeah.
themselves under the microscope and invest.
Completely. I completely agree because if a small, island like Jamaica is capable of producing the caliber of player like a Bunny Shaw, my goodness, the amount of talent that's probably lurking there right now that's going undiscovered or maybe not properly nurtured is incredible. And I think it needs to be on display for the rest of the world to see completely.
Well, it wasn't that long ago, again, about 4 years ago, when they had to raise their own money to travel, if I remember rightly.
To the World Cup.
Yes.
Yeah, to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And they did
So
well.
yeah,
They
they
did
did,
well.
absolutely. And the
Hmm.
thing is, that's just over a matter of 4 years. Again,
Right.
there seems to be some kind of
Exactly.
pattern appearing here, doesn't there? 4 years.
There really is. Yeah, the growth in the last 4 years has been astronomical. Um, On Bunny Shaw, she's a fantastic striker, and that's going to lead us to our last, actually second last, because I know we wanted to touch a little bit on what potentially Alexia coming to the WSL looks like. But another striker that has now recently departed the WSL, not departed the earth, thankfully,
Of
um,
course.
is Sam Kerr. And when I said departed, so that sounds really morbid, is Sam Kerr. So Sam Kerr initially was with Chelsea. She's now re-signed with Gotham FC, but she signed for Chelsea towards the end of 2019, so just before COVID hit, unfortunately. And Bev, this was considered a really significant signing for the game, but especially for the WSL, and certainly for Chelsea in general. But the league specifically, this was a massive signing. And it wasn't because of finances or massive transfer fees, because Sam signed, I believe she signed on a transfer. I will confirm that, but I think it was on a transfer. But it wasn't a significant amount of money or anything like that. It was the impact of this sort of player moving across to a European team. So Sam, at the time, was arguably one of the best players in the world. She won 3 straight Golden Boots in the NWSL, which is crazy. Um, and it really signaled a bit of a shift in power. So I think prior to 2019, or towards the end of 2019, the NWSL was I mean, it's still a fantastic league, don't get me wrong, and it's definitely gotten a lot better, but it was considered one of the strongest in the world because of that balance and that parity that exists across the league. And for them to have attracted a player like Sam and for her to really come into her spotlight in the NWSL was huge. So for them to lose her at the time, it really showed a little bit of the power that England and the WSL was starting to gain. And I think what was so fascinating about the Sam signing was that she really chose the project that Emma was building. And I think you're going to see a little bit of parallels to the person we'll speak of right after this because she noted that her and Emma had actually spoken for about a year and a half prior to that signing. So this was going on for quite some time. And Emma was really speaking to her about what she was building at Chelsea, why Sam would fit in, why it was a good move for her. But it wasn't something that happened overnight. It took some time and it took some understanding of what exactly is this person building and why is this going to be really good for me. And so when she finally did come over, she, started a little slowly in the league, but initially, and then eventually, excuse me, took a lot of root in the league and just became this incredible figure for the WSL, but also for Chelsea and kind of helped Chelsea build this like dynasty for
Mm.
6 years or whatever it was. And it really, again, it spoke to that power because Sam is someone who has transcended the sport. She's, what I would reference as someone who you might not really need to know much about women's football to kind of know who Sam is. She's a big figure for the Matildas, for soccer or football, whatever you call it in general. And to have that kind of figure in the league at the time was really massive. I mean, I remember when she signed, I couldn't even believe it. It was, oh, wow, this is interesting. Um, and what transpired after was, I mean, we saw the backflips, we saw the crazy ass goals that she scored, um, and just became this interesting character that really defined Chelsea for quite a few years and the WSL truly.
I remember watching the One Team, One Dream documentary. And what was
Mm,
interesting about that was that you could see Chelsea were the forerunners in shifting the WSL. And I'll give you
hmm
some examples. So, I mean, I think that, as you've just said, taking on Kerr was quite strategic in terms of further development and trajectory into the future of the WSL.
hmm
But what they started
Yes,
within that documentary, I could see that Emma and Paul Green, wasn't it? They were starting
yes.
to look at the footballers' health, physicality,
hmm
mental health,
Yes.
well-being, the nutrition of the players
hmm
and what they were actually what kind of diets they had, and monitoring those,
Yes.
um, and the fitness, the overall fitness. So it was indicators of professionalism, I would have said, Dan. Would you agree?
Completely. Yeah. And that's something that Emma's been kind of hailed with. doing, kind of setting those benchmarks of what that next level of professionalism looks like and raising the standard. And I think signing Sam was like raising the profile of Chelsea, but also raising the profile of the WSL and saying, okay, here's your blueprint that we're going to help set out, and every club can now follow this blueprint, and you guys can go out and get your own marquee signing and build from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can remember watching
Mhm.
that documentary and everybody go, oh, I can't wait to see the backflip. So she came with her own idiosyncrasies, didn't she? She had, again, with her own agency. And I also remember, Dan, that she had millions of followers as well. So the demographics of the fans and
Right.
fans abroad, again, those nodes that
Hmm.
I've mentioned, casting a net further
Completely.
afield. I think it was great strategy.
Hmm.
And there we go, back to the kitchen gate. Come on, Emma's
Hmm.
a mind.
Come
She's
on,
got a huge brain on her,
genius.
hasn't she? She's a genius. Yeah, she
Yeah,
thinks long term.
she is a genius.
She would have
She
known.
does.
Yeah, yeah.
She does. Hmm. Oh, completely. And she would have known. And that's why the signing of this player was so significant. And obviously, to lose her kind of sucks, but we know that people have to move on. But for the time that it raised the profile of Chelsea, it raised the profile of the WSL. It shifted a lot of that power, and now you consistently hear the comparisons between the NWSL and the WSL. And it's when these types of players, not just Sam, but a player of her profile, when one moves to one league or the other, you're going to hear those comparisons and and what contrasts them, because these are the types of players that define these leagues and define certain clubs and what it means to look at that league or that club and say, oh, wow, that player plays for them. Like, that's what they're doing over there. And that player plays for that club. And it is really interesting how the NWSL and WSL are almost running a little bit parallel in the way that they're going about business, and seeing, yeah, and seeing kind of now where they're going to break off, if they're going to break apart or if they're going to move even closer together. I think is going to be quite fascinating. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. It is clear that the right minds are on board it. And when I look at,
Hmm.
Rodman and Bunny Shaw and Sam Kerr and Keira Walsh, they knew what
Hmm.
they were doing as well. You see, these
They did.
footballers have been up against the wall in the past. They've really had to fight their corner. Goes back to what we were talking
Hmm.
about with Emma and Kitchengate. She knows her stuff. She's been on the
Yeah.
receiving end of lots of misogyny and sexism. I think she knows how to play the
Hmm.
game much more so than these.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely.
Agreed. Agreed.
These are very intelligent women as well as being great on the pitch.
Completely. And that's a huge part of it. And it speaks to also the people that they're working with. A lot of blueprints can be laid down here with who they're working with, and the kind of strategy behind them, but also their intelligence level. So it speaks to all of that. Bev, there's one more I think we needed to touch on. We decided we were going to add this one. So it was announced a few days ago. Alexia Putellas will be signing for London City. Club and player have not confirmed it, but it's basically a done deal. I think they're probably just waiting for her to return from her holiday to do the actual signing and all the media stuff. She was also in Venezuela a few days ago when those earthquakes unfortunately hit, so she's okay, and unfortunate situation there. But I would assume it's going to be announced very soon, probably this week. And obviously, because it hasn't been confirmed yet, we don't know the details specifically of contract and all that kind of stuff. But I think this is very similar to Sam signing in 2019 with the WSL, and I know Bev, you kind of agreed in terms of what it means and what it means for the league and the type of player that's coming in. This is one of those needle moving and shifting of the league moments, in my opinion, um, because this is someone who has been largely regarded as one of the best or the best player in some regard to have ever played the women's game, who's still at an insanely high and top level. I don't think anyone can look at how she's been performing and say, oh, she's washed. Definitely not. So this is massive. And I think what's so interesting about it is that she's signing for a club that is a project, as we've noted, in London City with Michelle Kang. And it really does speak to her looking at this project and saying, oh, I don't need to be part of a club that is backed by a massive Premier League outfit because there's something here that's going to set this team apart and this club apart in a league that is dominated by, Premier League um, outfits and their women's teams, right? And I think it's really going to speak to this type of signing. It's going to speak to what Michelle Kang is building, what the WSL is looking like from an attractiveness standpoint to players, and how the league is going to continue to grow. Because if London City can attract a player like this, I think that there's interest from others who might want a standalone independent club to say, put their hands up and say, I want to do that because I want to attract an Alexia Putellas type figure in 4 or 5 years' time once we get rooted in the league.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, Kang said, once you open the door, you open the floodgates, and
Mhm.
others will want to
Yeah,
buy in. I mean, when
yeah,
the WSL starts again and London City
hmm
Lionesses play their first game, you can imagine that the
yeah,
queues are going to be down the road miles. What do you reckon? I mean, just to see her,
yeah,
just to see her play.
100.
I mean, she's a legacy in her own
Yep,
right, isn't she? And the thing is, she was
correct.
very adamant that she didn't want to join a club that was going to be directly facing off with Barcelona in the Champions League.
Mhm,
So she knew that because
mhm.
she's got a 2-year contract. So I imagine that, that investment for a couple of years is what it's going to take to float, if you like, London City Lionesses, to elevate them a little bit
Yeah,
higher within the league and possibly within 2 years get Champions League at those
mm,
top three positions. And she was also very
yeah,
interested in joining an independent club that's headed by a
mhm,
billionaire, Michelle Klang, who is also a woman. She was very interested in
mhm.
that. Again, it's that
Yeah,
intelligence, isn't it? It's that woman to woman intelligence, etc. I have heard
completely.
I have heard people
hmm
say, oh, well, she's injury prone because she's had her ACL, she's done a hamstring, and
mm
she's done a few other things. She's injury prone, and there's a huge risk there. Well, there is such a thing as called rotation. So
hmm
not putting her under tremendous pressure all of the time. Is she, at the end of the day, she is 32 years old. Let's be realistic about this. So in a
Sure.
sense,
Yeah.
she's going to have to be managed, isn't she, in terms of minutes, etc. But
hmm
also,
Yeah.
she can dictate in the field through her mind because she, again, she's got lots and lots of experience. She's got leadership.
hmm
She's won God knows how
Oh,
many
yeah.
titles and cups and tournaments, etc. She's won the World Cup, for God's sake, with
Right.
Spain. So she is bringing a
Exactly.
tremendous amount of brain power and experience with her. But also, do you know something I've always felt? I mean, we touched upon it last week, I think, with London City Lionesses, in terms of what they lack. Sometimes when,
Mm,
the younger players, when they've been gone down or gone behind a goal or something or other towards up against another club, the mentality is the resilience is easily knocked. Their mentality is easily knocked. And I thought
mm,
Putellas she'll shore that up. She'll knock that out of them. She'll say,
mhm.
come on, you know, you're going to get
Um,
setbacks.
Yep.
Let's move forward with this.
Yep.
Let's look at the strengths.
Mm,
And I think it would also build systems within the Lionesses there because I think they're a little bit disparate at the moment, Dan. You can see oh, what's her name? Oh,
mm.
Grace.
Who
I'm thinking of Grace, what's her
Grace
name?
Giora?
Yes, and there's also
Gioro? Yeah.
that's the one, yeah. She sits a bit on her own
Mhm,
when she needs to be linked up with Paris. If they get the systems in place, they can push further forward because they do
yeah.
lack that last bit in terms of getting into the box with numbers and finishing off to create a goal. I think she will be the glue
Mhm.
that brings everything together.
I completely agree with you. And you know what? This can only, we talk about profile raisers, this can only raise the profile of the league. It'll raise London City, but also the amount of young players that London City Lionesses have. You think of Freya Godfrey, Lucia Corrales, who's a young Spanish player. There's quite a bit of them. I would not be surprised if even in the January window, LCL add a few more young players because now, for example, from your perspective, if you look at the future of your Lionesses at a national team perspective, someone like Freya Godfrey playing with a player like Alexia Putellas, that is a dream come true because she's
Mm,
going to learn so much from this player who was developed in a system that is completely opposite to how England develops players. And that's
mm,
only going to benefit her and raise her level and raise her profile so that she has something even greater to offer when she hopefully very soon finally does get on the pitch for England. It can only help a lot of people. So it's going to help so many different things. It's going to help the league. It's going to help the club. It's going to help all those different players. And it's going to benefit Alexia too, because she's going to get to do something completely different to what she's used to doing. It's going to be different atmosphere, different club. It's going to challenge her in different ways too.
mm,
And
mm,
yeah, I can only see this honestly as a good move. I've seen the criticisms, whatever. At this point, it's a done deal. We don't actually know any details too much about the actual contract, but as you mentioned, it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year deal, I would assume.
mm,
What that looks like because if you look at the international calendar, so next year is the Women's World Cup, 2028 is the Olympics, and 2029 would be the Euros. So if I was a betting woman, I'd probably say it might be actually be a 3 year deal so that it covers her for those three tournaments because my brain would probably go to 2029, excuse me, might be her last international tournament given her age.
I
Um,
totally agree.
contract wise, yeah, contract-wise, there's probably going to be all those performance bonuses and all that kind of stuff in there. And honestly, I would probably see this being on a financial level similar, if not more, than what Bunny Shaw is making. I know that sounds insane for a player of her age, but what she's going to bring and what Michelle Kang is willing to put forward, I would not be surprised if that is at that Bunny Shaw number or succeeding it just because of the level of player that they're bringing in. So we'll see.
Absolutely. I mean, Putellas, she's been playing football for a long time, so she would have started at a time when they had nothing, when they had to fight for everything, when
Yep,
they didn't have
yep,
infrastructure, where they didn't have proper physical care and nutrition and sports
all
psychologists.
of
She
it.
wouldn't have that. Because I mean, they're now, Barcelona are now at the mercy of the men's, aren't they? The men's made a big mess up in Barcelona, so they are trapped.
Oh yeah.
In women's team are
Mhm.
trapped in terms of the mess that the Barcelona men have made because they've overspent essentially and they have nothing left to pay them. So she would have gone through a lot. And I agree with you
Yeah.
in terms of Godfrey, a youngster,
Mhm.
and yeah, he should get down. Um, but if she wants to be picked for England, she's the one thing about the Lionesses, when their backs are against the wall, it's their mentality that sees them through. And I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if why Serena has held back on picking her
Mhm.
because of that lack of. There is, I honestly don't. I've seen it so many times. They just drop their jaws, and when they go
Mhm.
behind, and you think, no, you need a mentality to belong to the Lionesses because
Yeah.
that's how they play.
Mhm. And someone like Alexia brings a lot of mentality and a lot of leadership. So all those
Yeah.
youngsters, this is a dream come true. If I was a young player right now and I see that, I'm like, "Ooh, I might want to play for London City because
Oh, absolutely.
that is
Yeah.
a league pusher, a club pusher, a league pusher, and just again the type of figure that's coming into the WSL, it's huge. I know personally, I'm absolutely going to be there for London City versus Chelsea because I want to see her play too. So you see what I mean? It's going to attract international visitors too.
You're prepared to come from Canada
Why
to
not?
watch her. Yeah. I mean, you can
Exactly.
see
Yeah,
the
I would
buzz
love
and
to.
yeah, you can see the buzz and the talk on
Yeah,
social media. Oh my God, Patelis. Oh my God. Oh, followed by why
yeah,
is she going to London City Lionesses, a club that's finished sixth or
right.
seventh in the league this year. But they are seeing it through narrow lenses, I'm afraid.
Completely. Yeah. big job ahead for London City, but I think that they can do it. And incredible to see Alexia coming to the WSL. And I really enjoyed our chat today, Bev. I think we really spoke about players who, whether it's their transfer, their contract, or just their overall persona, what they've meant to whether they did a transfer again, whether it was a contract or their signings for certain clubs, really important ones. And I think as the game continues to grow, we're going to see a lot more. We're going to have to add probably more to this list. So this will be maybe an annual episode of who might we need to add to this list, given what's been going on and what's potentially coming for the game.
Shall we finish with the common denominators? Because we mentioned that at the head of this particular topic, didn't
Yes,
we? So if I pull them out quickly, because you mentioned that
absolutely.
you had a few as well, it gives an indication of the trajectory. Although I don't think you need to be a mind
Mhm.
reader to work out where it's all going. I mean, the
Yeah.
strongest denominator has to be it's their own empowerment, isn't it? It's about their own agency
Hmm.
and, you know, what they can bring to the table in terms of their skills, their legacy, their leadership, and shape
Yeah.
the teams that they're going to
Hmm.
be joining, etc. It's kind of shaken things up in terms of structure. Policies have had to be rewritten in terms of Trinity Rodman's, the Rodman, what was it called? The Rodman
Rodman
high
rule.
impact
Yeah.
rule, wasn't it? Yeah. So those kind of
Yeah.
things. Bunny Shaw, she challenged Man City in terms of their structures, etc. It's record breaking, they're historic, and obviously again, Bunny
Exactly.
Shaw's is going to be a legacy because she's been at Man City a very long time. It's impacting on the market and shaping valuations. So these deals are going to
Yeah.
reflect a rapid inflation of salaries and transfer fees and commercial value in the women's game.
Mm.
What it means in
Yeah.
practice, new salary ceilings. It's forced
Yep.
league policy rewrites, as I've already mentioned, and it's redefined transfer expectations and
Yeah.
demonstrated
It really has.
demonstrated the commercial power of elite women's football. What would you like to add to that, Dan?
You know what? I just had a bunch of random words and you kind of covered them. It was more impact for me was probably the biggest one because it has impact on all levels. It
Yeah.
impacts the transfers, it impacts the type of contracts, it impacts the club, the leagues, those profile raisers, as we said. And, just kind of honestly, I wrote down a word here and I don't even know if it's a common denominator, but I'm going to use it. Just going to put disruptor. We speak
Yes.
about London City Lioness as being a bit of a disruptor. All of these people we've spoken about, they've disrupted things in some way or
Mm.
another. Whether it's disrupting the transfer market, disrupting wage structures, disrupting what a league looks like and what it means to come in there with your own persona and your own legacy already and build upon that legacy and what it opens the door for other players to do the same. So a lot of disruptors, and I think sometimes people hear the word disruptor and they think it's a negative thing, but it can also be a insanely positive one. And that's basically what we've seen here because of the overall growth in every aspect of the women's game has come from a lot of these different transfers, contracts, signings, all the above. So that's probably the one that I wanted to add the most.
If you don't take risk, things don't change or move, do they? So they don't want to stay
Nope.
where they
High
are.
risk,
Yeah, high risk, but you
high
know, the
risk, high
yields
reward.
massive. Absolutely, they are indeed.
100%.
Now, we want to just throw this out
Yeah.
in terms of getting you on board. You know, come on, contribute. We're not getting anything from you,
Come on.
not too much. Come on, guys.
Or
Now,
not. We really want to.
or not. Commodities, people, or both. Now, we would like your thoughts on
Mm,
that one, please. Commodities, people, or both of them. What do you
yeah.
think?
Tell us. Tell us all the above. And you know what? We will put out a post. I'm going to put out a post on our social media to preview this topic because there's going to be a little bit of a thought carousel, as we like to call it. And I'm going to put that out there. So let's start with that, get some comments on there, and then we can transfer those over to the podcast next week. How does that feel?
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, Bev, for spending some time with me today. I hope you stay cool. in both ways, yourself and from a temperature perspective. Haha, I tried to go there, I tried my best. Thank you, everyone. Wherever you are in the world, please stay cool, stay healthy, and we will see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.